That's the case. Let's talk a little bit about your being in the news. As you know, the president is going after you. Personally, I'll play the clip. This is the president in the Oval Office. Earlier today, he was sitting next to the NATO Secretary General.
Nothing you give them, whether it's Shifty Shift or Jerry Nadler, I will tell you, anything we give them will never be enough.
All right, what's your response to the president?
Well, the president seems to be changing his tune. Originally, it was, let everybody see the report. I have nothing to worry about in the report. The report must exonerate me. He seems to be now concerned about what's in that report and not want the public to see all of it. But look, we voted 420 to 0. There's little, as you can tell, that we agree upon in Congress about the Russia investigation, but we do agree on this. After 2 years of investigation by Bob Mueller and his team, the public has a right to see what he came up with. The president shouldn't try to hide it. Bill Barr shouldn't try to hide it. That needs to come out, and we're going to have to use whatever compulsion is necessary to make sure that happens.
What about his point that nothing they release will ever be enough for you and Jerry Nadler?
Well, look, every request we have made thus far, every request out of any of the oversight committees have been refused with a blanket refusal. They've given us no meaningful response to any inquiry, no matter how legitimate. Their strategy is basically to stonewall as long as they can. This is a continuation of that. We saw with his treatment of Bob Mueller what we are now seeing with his treatment of Congress, and that is just attack people. He was attacking Bob Mueller. Now he's attacking Chairman Nadler, myself, and others. Try to stonewall, prevent an interview with the special counsel. He's trying to prevent providing Congress with information as well.
When he calls you these names, what do you think?
I guess when he first started calling me names, and I've had about 8 nicknames now, it was surreal that the President of the United States would be so childish. I've had to get used to it. The country's had to get used to it. When you add up the amount of time he spends on this stuff, that he should be running the country, it comes as a great cost. Personally, I think he's losing a step here. The cardinal rule of nicknames is you pick one and you stick to it.
Well, you've had several from the president. You're one of 6 House Committee chairmen who have just signed on to a letter demanding the full, unredacted Mueller report be released by the Attorney General as soon as possible. But I want you to listen to what the former FBI Director James Comey told our Christiane Amanpour earlier today. Listen to this.
Bill Barr, our Attorney General, deserves the benefit of the doubt. Give him a chance to show us what he feels like he can't show us. I have to imagine that former Director Mueller wrote the report with an eye towards it being public someday, so I can't imagine a lot needs to be cut out of it. But let's wait and see. The Attorney General deserves that chance.
Do you agree that the Attorney General deserves a chance? Let him release what he wants to release, then you can make some decisions?
Wolf, I'll tell you why I don't give this Attorney General the benefit of the doubt. If he came to the job clean, without any history in this investigation, I would say yes, give him the benefit of the doubt. But he didn't. He wrote a 19-page legal memo, which was basically a job application saying, if you pick me for your AG, I will have your back on the obstruction of justice case. And that's exactly what he's done. During his Senate confirmation, he would not commit even to following the advice of ethics lawyers. You cannot blind yourself to that conflict of interest. So no, I'm not prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm prepared to hold him to his commitment during the confirmation that he would be as transparent as law and policy would allow. He's not doing that. If he were doing that, he wouldn't be saying, I'm going to redact all the grand jury material. He would be saying, consistent with my promise, I'm going to go to the court. I'm going to ask for court permission to release this material. That's what he would be doing, but he's not. And I think it raises profound questions about what's in that grand jury material and why is there an effort to withhold it from Congress.
But does it really make much difference if you wait 2 weeks and see what he does?
Look, I think their intention is to play rope-a-dope, to drag this out along with every other request. But the fact of the matter is we can tell already from the fact that he has given us his own summary rather than a summary that may have been prepared by Bob Mueller. We can see where he's coming from. The fact that he is not seeking court permission to release the grand jury material tells us what we need to know. He is not trying to be as transparent, and I think quite the contrary.
But if you wind up having to subpoena to get all this information, that's going to wind up in the courts, and who knows how long that process can take.
Well, it will be up to our leadership to decide when the time is right to subpoena and what that subpoena should look like. But I do think that ultimately this is a fight we're going to need to have, because we cannot allow an attorney general that comes into the job with a clear bias to make a decision about what the Congress or the country can see. We should see all of it. The fact that he wants to redact classified information, I would imagine, I do agree with James Comey, that Bob Mueller probably made an effort to segregate the classified information, knowing there was tremendous interest in making this public. But the Congress gets classified information all the time. That is not a justification.
So you would be okay if the so-called Gang of Eight, the top leadership of the intelligence committees and the leadership in the House and the Senate, Democrats and Republicans, if they alone got to see the most sensitive classified information that was not made public?
I don't want the Attorney General to hide behind the Gang of Eight and say, we're not going to show the country what we have, but trust us, we briefed the Gang of Eight. There may be a small category of material that goes to sources and methods that goes to the Gang of Eight, but I don't think that it's likely Bob Mueller would have put that in the main body of the report. That might be in an annex of some kind. But if those are the concerns, as Chairman Nadler has said in his letter to the Attorney General, talk to us about it, work with us on it. But the Attorney General's not doing that, and that has us profoundly concerned.
Because one of the other categories that the Attorney General wants to redact, to black out from the final Mueller report, is information that could undermine ongoing criminal investigations being conducted now by other U.S. attorneys, whether in New York or Washington, D.C. or Virginia or elsewhere.
Again, the Justice Department showed a ready willingness to provide that kind of information, even as to the Mueller investigation itself, while it was ongoing, to a Republican Congress in answer to subpoena. So they've been willing to do that. In fact, the last category that Barr mentions that he wants to redact is information that reflects on people who are not indicted. Well, they gave us 880,000 pages of material in the last Congress to a GOP Congress that was predominantly in the Clinton email investigation in which no one was indicted. So they seem to be adopting a double standard here. We will provide all this to a GOP Congress vis-a-vis a Democratic candidate for president, but when it comes to a Republican president that had the sense to appoint me, that is Bill Barr, we have a different standard entirely.
As you know, the Attorney General, Bill Barr, in his 4-page summary of the 400-page Mueller report, he quotes the special counsel. The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities. Do you have reason to believe that the full report, once we see it, assuming we're going to see the whole thing, will contradict that conclusion?
I don't think it will contradict the conclusion that Mueller reached, presuming that's what he reached, that he could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt all of the elements of criminal conspiracy with the government of Russia. But whether it will itemize all of the interactions between the Trump campaign and Russian officials and Russian nationals, their willingness to accept the help of the Russian government is reflected in Don Jr.'s emails, all of the clandestine meetings, all the lies about that. Yes, I would imagine that will all be discussed, and that may be part of why the president doesn't want the public to see it. But it's all the more reason why this needs to be transparent.
Will your committee, the Intelligence Committee, subpoena Robert Mueller to testify before your committee?
I think it is inevitable that Bob Mueller is going to have to testify, and I would presume that he may testify before multiple committees. The Judiciary Committee will be predominantly interested in the criminal side. We are interested in how this investigation began, and it may even be ongoing. We don't know. And that is, this began as a counterintelligence investigation over concerns that the president or people around him may be compromised, wittingly or unwittingly. We don't know if that's even going to be a part of the Mueller report. By law, the FBI is required to brief us on any significant counterintelligence activity. We will hold them to the law, and whether that's Bob Mueller himself or others within the intelligence community of the FBI, I don't want to say at this point. That will be a leadership decision. But I think it's inevitable that he's going to need to testify before Congress.
And when you say by law they have to brief you, you mean the Gang of Eight?
They have to brief Congress on any significant intelligence or counterintelligence activity. That's usually done through the Intelligence Committee. Sometimes with very select material, it's done to the Gang of Eight. But we're going to want to make sure those materials, that information, that report, if it exists,